Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Board of Trustees public session agenda. Today is March 11th, 2021. The time is 6:17 p.m. We'll now call this meeting to order. We'll begin, as per usual, with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So we'll begin tonight's meeting with public comment. If there's anyone who would like to speak, you can please raise your hand and Kat will let you in. Comments should be kept to 3 minutes, and our clerk and administrator, Charlene Cagle-Betts, will remind you when you're approaching the 3-minute mark.
First person in is Jessie Marie. And she's loading. Where did she go? Okay. I do not see Jessie Marie. So let me put Jay Fitzpatrick in. Here comes Jay Fitzpatrick. If you'll unmute, sir,
Jay, the
we're
floor
ready
is
to
all
hear
yours.
you.
Okay, I unmuted.
Okay. And I'm going to tell Jessie Marie, you'll be next if you can get your camera working and your sound. Go ahead, Jay.
Okay, Jay Fitzpatrick, 243 Elm Street. I was going to try to show you a video, but I can't because it's not allowing me to. But I promise to be brief, be bold, and be gone. So let me read a short statement. The summer up to 2020 were horrors for the neighbors on Elm Street and around Elm Street. Loud music, noise, crowds, fights, cars, Uber, limos, and trash ruined our summer way into and past Labor Day. We pleaded with the trustees for some relief. They dutifully listened, but nothing changed. Not even the police could stop the bars, restaurant, clubs on Elm Street and the caterers. Not even summons, guilty fees, or fines could stop them. It took a horrible virus to bring calm to our neighborhood. For 1 year, we lived like the rest of the village, safe and quiet. But fortunately, there's light at the end of the tunnel and things are opening back up to normal, but not normal for Elm Street is not the same normal as the rest of the village. My neighbors and I ask you to support to keep Elegant Affairs, a party venue from Up Island, from getting even bigger with outside expansion of a 174-seat, 2,400 square foot deck, porches, and patios. Party venues like Elegant Affairs can at least be oblivious and at worst inconsiderate to the neighborhood. As shown on their expansion plans, they propose to hold and seat 737 people, 47 parking spaces. In the morning on Elm Street, it's a herd of food and beverage trucks coming up and down the street. Then it's morphed into a caravan and cars, limos, Ubers, carrying partiers into the wee hours of the morning, capped off by the beep, beep, beep of garbage trucks at 5:30 in the morning, waking up neighbors after a few hours of sleep, all to start all over again. So please help the neighborhood. Thank you.
Jay, thank you very much for your comments. It's good to see you again.
Thank you.
And thank you. The next public comment is Jess Marie.
Okay, Jess, if you'll start your camera. There you go. You have the floor.
Sure. My name is Jess DeRubio. I live in Southampton Village, and I wanted to lodge a public comment about 116-37, which is the public notice that was in the paper about the change to the demolition permits from pre-1926 to 50 years from now. And I think that the public notice in the paper is misleading. The public notice talks about fees and permits, but does not clarify the action in the change from the permit process from pre-1926 to 50 years from today. And there needs to be better communication to the homeowners of Southampton Village so that we can understand and have better clarity on what's going on before these public decisions are being made about what we can do with our homes in the village of Southampton. And I'm really disappointed that, as a village homeowner, I have to find out about this through a chain of events, not through the public notice. And we should stick to the pre-1926 historical clarifications for demolition permits that are in place. That's really all I have to say.
Thank you very much for your comment. You may have an opportunity to speak again if you'd like this specifically on the record for the public hearing. We have the public hearing later tonight. This
Yeah,
was
it's
more
actually
public
my
comment in
dad's
general.
birthday, so unfortunately I have to leave.
Okay.
But this was really the only chance that I was able to get in here and talk about it, because there are a lot of us homeowners here that have no idea what's trying to be done, and it's really unfortunate. And I think that there needs to be an actual notice talking about the true change to 116-37 versus just permits and notices, and that it needs to go to the public, and there needs to be a different timing on this process. It's really just kind of unfair, and it feels really icky.
Thank you very much for
Yeah.
sharing your comments.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Kat, do we have another public comment?
I don't see any hands up at this time, but if you'll re-announce it, maybe one will go up.
Okay. We will wait for a few more moments here to see if there's additional public comment. We know there's quite a few participants tonight, but again, we have the public hearing later for the comment related to that. So we'll continue to proceed here, and then we'll get to our public hearing. Our next portion of our meeting is the Employee of the Month, and we have two Employees of the Month. We have a lot of employees who are doing a great job. So the first Employee of the Month is Matt Fitzpatrick. He is a member of the Central Garage, and his title is an Auto Mechanic 3. And we just wanted to read a few comments from some of Matt's team. He's outstanding at teamwork within his department, and his Paul Murphy, who nominated him, said the following: throughout multiple snowstorms, all the mechanics in Central Garage have worked extremely hard to keep our fleet running. Mr. Fitzpatrick has also helped our crews on the road on a daily basis. From minor repairs to serious mechanical issues, he has been a model employee. So we wanted to thank Matt, because we did have quite the few snowstorms this winter. And if it wasn't for our entire Department of Public Works, in particular our Central Garage, helping back up those vehicles, the village would not be as good of a shape as it was. And the next Employee of the Month is Pedro Cuervo in the Highway Department, and he's an auto equipment operator. I have a few comments from his supervisor as well that I'd like to read, but Deputy Mayor Aresta would also like to share some comments, because she had a personal experience and received numerous compliments about Pedro.
Good evening, everyone. I nominated Pedro this month for Employee of the Month for a couple of different reasons. But first of all, I had the pleasure of meeting him outside of where I live in my neighborhood about 7:15 one morning when he was clearing the snow, and I stopped and to chat with him, because I noticed that he kind of had a plan as to what he was doing. He wasn't just pushing the snow. And I got into a conversation with him, and he was so polite, very much a gentleman. And he explained to me that what he was doing and how he had a plan to piling up the snow so it's easier to pick it up. And I said to myself, now here's a man who really takes pride in what he's doing. So it wasn't just about pushing the snow, it was about keeping our residents safe, getting the snow out of the way so everybody could have clearance in the street. And I have to say, my street never looked so, the neighborhood never looked so good. So, and then on top of that, I got, that very same day, I got an email from a resident, and it was about Pedro. and who was in her neighborhood, and she had the same comments about Pedro. He took the time to speak to a resident. They had an issue on the block, and he was very helpful. And then after that, I received another comment about Pedro. And so I went right into our administrator's office and I said, Pedro, he's got to be the employee of the month. So he takes pride in the job he has to do. He's an asset to the highway department, and he is certainly an asset to the village of Southampton.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And we also received broad compliments about Pedro. So we wanted to thank him as our additional employee of the month. He has done a fantastic job, again, along with the entire Department of Public Works this winter. It was a very, very rough month of February on us. And thanks to Pedro and thanks to our entire team, we had a very successful snow removal. So we're very lucky to have a number of great employees on our team working for the village. So thank you again to both employees of the month. Next on our agenda is board presentations, and the first board presentation tonight is regarding the Southampton Arts Council and the master plan, and wanted to thank both CMAC, Sammy, Planning Commission, Peter Marino, Isabel Marino for all of their hard work on this. This is something we're very excited about, and we're looking forward to hearing more. So with that being said, we have a presentation from CMAC Sammy, and Kat, whenever CMAC is ready, we can let him in.
Okay, as long as they raise their hand, I can figure out who they are. There's one. Here we go. Very nice. Okay, if you'll unmute, you have the floor.
Good evening, board member, trustee members, and mayor. Thank you for having me over today for this presentation. I have the pleasure to walk you through some of the work that we've been contemplating, and it's in a continuation of work that we undertook many years back, and part of the infrastructure, of the pedestrian infrastructure in the village, which was adopted as part of the commercial district master plan. We have the opportunity that with the Marino Foundation, the old library, village library, joining the groups of cultural institutions in this corner of our village, to share our grounds of the Southampton Art Center plus the Marino Foundation. And tonight's presentation walks you through this. As I said, this is a continuation of work that we've already been in front of the trustees and gotten approval for portions of it. Primarily, as far as the pedestrian infrastructure, it starts with the notion that Mr. Parrish, the gentleman that basically developed the Parish Museum and used to reside at the Rogers Mansion at the grounds of the Southampton Historical Museum, used to every morning walk down and cross the main street, and in between the alleys, somewhere in the proximity of where the present village hall alley is, walk to the back of the village hall, which was basically entering the grounds of the what we call the Arboretum, and then enter the original entrance of the museum on the basically the east side. And I would like to share my screen here at this point so that I could walk you through the graphics of this. Am I on your screen right now?
Yes.
Okay. So we all know the Southampton Art Center as the iconic building designed by Grosvenor Atterbury and with its main entrance on Job's Lane. This entrance did not used to be the original entrance to the building. The building was originally entered from Main Street, as I said, in the proximity of where the village hall is, through basically a gazebo-like structure as such. And this alleyway gazebo walk would basically lead to what we see here as the original entrance of the Southampton, or at that point was called the Southampton Arts Museum, which later on was renamed the Parish Museum. It's interesting, in this historic photo to the left of this photo, you see Job's Lane and the original and the section of the building that's basically bringing the building towards Job's Lane was not built at the time. This photo dates back to 1896, 97. Here's another photo, historic photo of the same entrance with the existing fountain, which we restored which I restored about 6 years ago on the grounds, on the east grounds of the Southampton Art Center. And here's the oldest Google Map photo of the area before the parking in the back of the village, where you can see the extent of the arboretum, although not all of it belonged to the Southampton Arts Museum, but this was basically the feel of the Southampton Arts Museum in 1910, which was basically the date where the third phase of the expansion of our museum was undertaken and brought the new entrance towards Job's Lane. This is a site plan of today's museum, as we call it, the Southampton Art Center. Not as much of a museum, but an art center where we introduce all sorts of hybrid cultural activities, and functions basically as the heart of what we adopted about 8-9 years ago as the Arts District. Which encompasses the various cultural institutions, starting with the Southampton Art Center, the Historical Museum, the Cultural Center, and various other cultural institutions in this area. What you'll see here is basically an infrastructure of brick walks and pedestrian walks, which is the focus of today's presentation. And a portion of this has been implemented and was approved and implemented. And I'll tell you where we basically stopped short of implementation. And with the Marino Foundation undertaking its renovation and opening up its doors, hopefully this summer, this was an opportunity to start focusing and improving these pedestrian infrastructures even furthermore. One of the key elements or key reasons for that is that in this past year, as we all know, with the coronavirus and the COVID, a lot of the indoor activities have been suspended. And actually last year, one of the key elements of our fundraising, which was the gala, was canceled because of the COVID-19. And we had a very small gathering of the art center's supporters for a dinner in between the Caesars. And this is basically, this proposal tonight is a proposal that would bring more focus and organization to these walkways and improve the outdoor facilities on the grounds of the Arboretum. And mind you, many years back, around 2000, when the Parish Museum wanted to expand its facility on the grounds of the Arboretum, the village and specific residents opposed that kind of expansion on Job's Lane, primarily because it would eliminate the grounds of the Arboretum from Job's Lane. The request was for the Parish Museum to shift its expansion to northwards, closer to the parking lot. At the time, the village brought in a consultant from Landscapes Architects. The name of the firm is Landscapes. A committee was created, and with the help of this professional landscape, a report was prepared for the village. And in this report, the grounds were divided up, documented, and in each section of the grounds, specific improvements both to preserve the character of the grounds and looking towards the future of how to improve them were recommended. We have been using these documents as basically our Bible to protect and preserve what's there, which is the historic arboretum, and develop it further on for our present day use. A point that I'd like to make is that Mr. Parrish, when he built this museum as a contribution towards arts and culture to Southampton Village, on par with that and an equal footing, he designed the Arboretum. The Arboretum was designed by Warren Manning, one of the most famous American landscape architects. And about, we're talking about in the 1890s, about 200 specimen trees were brought in from around Queens. And you know, back in those days, transportation was not the best. To bring in that number of trees, specimen trees from Queens, is quite an undertaking. The reason I'm bringing this up is that basically to emphasize that the grounds of the Arboretum are just as important of a component to this facility and this institution. This is a focus of where we are going to be working this spring to improve this pedestrian infrastructure. And it starts from Main Street, right adjacent to the Village Hall, which was the second phase of this pedestrian walk. The first phase of it was the walk from the Historical Museum by San Ambrose restaurant to Main Street. And this is across the street where about 4 or 5 years ago, we paved again another walk to the rear parking, and we stopped that project at that point. The idea was that basically to extend this brick walk through the parking and onto the original east entrance of the building, which presently is missing. We are planning to start the implementation of that. This is again a photo, is a drawing of what I call the restaurant alley next to the Village Hall. And it stops at the parking, and the proposal is to extend the brick walk onto the asphalt by taking away the asphalt in that section and flush with the asphalt introduce brick, so that there will be a continuous brick walk in this area, and then carrying that on the axis of original axis of the museum and the art center to its eastern entrance. From there, it connects to a north-south pedestrian walk, which is existent, but it will be expanded, and that ties itself to what we call the Caesar's Court, and it will be on the axis of what is considered to be the Merino Rose Garden or Court, and finally it steps down to Job's Lane. The Merino Garden and Rose Garden will be undertaken by Mr. Merino as part of its expansion and development of the western entrance to the museum. The Caesar's Court would be basically undertaken by the Southampton Art Center in conjunction with the Merino Foundation to tie these two courts and introduce a larger outdoor paved area. This is a three-dimensional drawing, the bird's eye view of looking from basically the roof of the Village Hall towards the original eastern entrance of the museum and the art center. The paving will be extended to there and connect to the north-south walk. You can see to the left the Caesar's Court. I'd like to bring your attention to the color of green on these photos, that there are three different green colors. At the lightest green are the grounds of the Southampton Art Center. To the left of the drawing, you have a medium green. That's the Merino Foundation property. And the darkest green is what presently is the village parking. And this parking basically is not lined up with the northern portion of the parking, and it encroaches onto the grounds of the center. What the Peter Merino is requesting and the Southampton Art Center is endorsing, and the Historical Museum is also endorsing, is to shave back and push back the length of a car, which is about 18 feet, and lining up the parking, north parking, with this south parking without elimination of any parking all along this stretch. And basically, by doing so, engaging the Marino Foundation more into the grounds of the center, since both of these institutions will be having plenty of activities outdoor by sharing the grounds and the beautiful building that the Marino Foundation is occupying will be more engaging into the grounds of the Southampton Art Center. This is an aerial view of the Marino Rose Court, as you can see, with the paved Caesars Court adjacent to it. That's an eye view walking towards north parking. And that's the existing walk, which basically, originally we thought that it's a very narrow walk. It is about only 3 feet wide, but we did realize that the grass has encroached over both borders of this walk, and we cleared that up in a portion to see where the brick stops, and basically that expanded this walk to a 5-foot walk, which is more than ample for 2 people walking next to one another. And we will be cleaning and clearing and extending this walk all the way from north to south in this manner. This is going to be the entrance to the Caesars Court, which is going to be on the axis of an entrance that is not getting used right now at the moment at the center. There are equipment, mechanical equipments behind that entrance, but we're using the architecture, the exterior architecture, and enhancing that with planting and hedging as a datum line, and introducing a collection of 5 brick paved carpets, if you may call it, both all in golden proportions, and paving this area. And this would be basically where we would entertain activities both during summer and off seasons. Here's a view back connecting to the Rose Garden and court for the Marino Foundation. And here's the view of the Caesars Court. We're also introducing a paved or edged gravel base underneath each one of the Caesars, because at the moment the grass grows all the way to the edge, and this way the landscapers would not have a problem weed whacking the base of these pedestals, which are actually the more precious element of these Caesars. The statues are replicas that Mr. Parrish commissioned on his visits to Italy. And from what I've been told, the bases are actually the more historic elements of these statuary. And this is, again, going back to our master plan proposal, which we're undertaking this spring. The cost of all these undertakings will be borne mostly by Mr. Marino and the Southampton Art Center. The only section that we request, including the parking edge, the only section that we'd request the village to undertake, which is basically not on our property, is the brick walk connecting the restaurant alley to the grounds of the Southampton Art Center. Which is a very small area in comparison to all the other undertakings. We are also, not part of this focus, redoing the fence on the west side, which is west boundary of the grounds, which is collapsing right now and in dire need of replacement, and cleaning up all that edge on the west and north side of the property. This basically concludes my presentation to you.
CMAC, thank you very much. That was an outstanding presentation, and the village is indebted to your hard work and the work of Peter Marino, Isabel, the Marino Foundation. I know I'm particularly excited about this coming to fruition, the adding of the planting and hedging, the Rose Garden, and the more centrist move into the village of the Marino Foundation. So I just wanted to say that for the record, but if there's any board members who have any questions or comments, wanted to turn it over to you, and feel free to, again, ask questions or comments.
But just before, I forgot to mention one thing. We did present these plans to the Planning Commission. and the Planning Commission has submitted a letter to the trustees endorsing this undertaking. And also Tom Edmonds of the Southampton Historical Museum has submitted a letter of support, basically as a historian, nicely defining our grouping as the Acropolis of Southampton, that this grouping basically would be tying, and these pedestrian infrastructures would be tying the various buildings and institutions of our village. Thank you.
CMAC, first of all, thank you for your presentation, and thank you for taking the time to speak with me privately. I do have a quick question for you, and well, actually, it's more of a caveat. Would you be willing to make a presentation in front of the ARB just to have some of their insight? I know maybe most of them are on site given the public hearing, but maybe and you can maybe reach out to them and see if they have any input, because obviously they do have some oversight when it comes to planting plans and you know, it is a village property and they are the historic board. So would you be willing to to speak with them?
I have no reservations regarding that, but I do like to emphasize that first of all, the ARB's say on this thing. Basically, we are not doing anything regarding the building, and we are going to go in front of the ARB when it comes to restoration of the eastern entrance of the art center. The walks do not fall under the ARB's jurisdiction, and specifically both the Merino Foundation and the Caesar's Walk and so forth. These are all landscape elements that basically do not fall under the jurisdiction of the ARB. We are proposing a specific number of trees, not as much as a screening, but as an element of landscape design consistent with the original intent of Warren Manning, which was basically what we call the gardenesque approach towards landscaping of these grounds, which was basically presentation of specimen trees informally on a trimmed grass area. That's basically the notion that was adopted in design of these grounds. And we are all along the parking edge, introducing random placement of dogwood trees so that it would soften up that edge looking into the parking and the rear of the commercial buildings when one is walking down the path. But none of this work falls into the jurisdiction of ARB for us to, and I'd be more than glad to share this thing informally with them, but we don't need to get any kind of approval from the ARB on these.
Yeah, that's why I was referring to more of an informal, similar to what Tom had to do with his property, with the museum property, and just to have it, have a double check on that as well. So I would appreciate just have you reach out to them and just get their input again informally. So
should I speak now? Can you hear me?
sure, Tom.
I don't know why my face isn't on there. It was for a minute, but
I was holding you until everybody was done.
okay. Well, nobody needs to see my face.
Yeah.
CMAC, Joe, I'll address your question about ARB. There was some confusion about our presentation with that as well, because start my video here. I'm just reading, something popped up. Okay, there I am. So Joe, we went to the ARB and we weren't totally sure we needed to. We were creating a pergola, which was not a building, but we just wanted ARB's opinion, more or less, and they gave us some good advice, and we're replanning. I just want to remind everybody, I think everybody knows CMX Sammy has been volunteering his services to the village for decades. I think he was doing it before I came here. And 10 years ago, he created our brick walkway from the Rogers Mansion to Main Street, which is stunning. And it has increased our visitation 30% over the years. We get lots of people, lots of tourists. mostly not residents, but tourists have come in through that way. They often don't know why they're there or where they're going. I feel it's like a lobster trap. People get trapped in there and they end up coming into the museum, or they come to our thrift shop or something like that. So it's a huge asset besides being a stunning piece. So this is a continuation of something CMX started a long time ago. And Tom Dunn has done an amazing job re-enlivening this site. It's so exciting to see what they're doing. And I think Tom Dunn and CMX Sammy needs the full support of this board, and whoever else they have to appear to. Thank you.
I have one more question. Is it the intention of the SAC to restore the entrance and to use the entrance in a more traditional in the original format?
Yes, I can comment on that. Yes, definitely. As you all know, this building has not been really looked after. I can use the number close to 100 years from the day it was built. It's basically survived since its original conception as is, and it's in dire need of restoration. The roof, the skylights, the auditorium section, and then there were certain additions made on the west side of the building which are not compatible with the historic nature of this building, and all these have to be addressed. One of the beauties of this building, being that it was built in 3 stages, originally the center portion, then the auditorium, then the north, and then the section to the Job's Lane, is that it has introduced different entrances to the building. And we have used these entrances depending on what kind of activity there is in the building, and basically designed it as such. So use of different entrances is consistent with the design and the original development of this building. And we're actually extending that further. Hopefully, and that is something that the ARB will have more of a say on, is the western entrance on the same axis, east-west original portion of the building, which basically opens up to the fountain or the lily pond, if you want to call it, on the west garden, west portion. We are proposing down the line an opening of the building onto the grounds, because at the moment there's a very weak connection of the building to the grounds. And that's going to be basically the third entrance to the building that's going to be developed. So yes, your answer is that these entrances will be restored. We will be going in front of the ARB when it gets to restoration of the building. And we celebrate these because, again, one of the beauties of this building is its hybrid functionality. We are not just a museum. We are a cultural institution that uses all sorts of, uses capacity for all sorts of different cultural activities, from live entertainment to children's activity, to movies, to talks, to, as you can see right now, East End collected the 6th itineration of it, which is one of the most magnificent contributions towards the East End community of artists, bringing them together, and each time a new artist in these six series of shows. So to your point, Joseph, yes, we are going to be restoring these as part of the larger plan in the coming years of restoring the building.
So you're going to be doing this more in phases, I'm guessing.
Absolutely. I mean, always, as we all know, funding is an issue. We have not burdened the village with the operation of the Southampton Art Center. And everybody thinks that all this happens in a vacuum, which is not the case. We have a budget of close to $1.5 million, which is privately raised. And that's not a small task. When we, if you remember, about 7 years ago, when the Southampton Art Center was created after the parish left the village, we brought in the famous Boston firm Machado and Silvetti to do a master study of how our building is going to be developed within and beyond on its grounds. And this was basically a 50-year projection of how this building is going to be used and improved. The price tag of about $15–16 million associated with that was such that at the point as a newly created institution, we did not justify that kind of expenditure when we didn't even stand on our legs as an institution, as a new cultural institution. We basically shifted our focus not from improving the facility, but to developing our program and proving that we can be a cultural institution in the absence of parish museum. And the great news is that 6 years down the line, I can tell you that we have successfully met that challenge to the extent that we've had even a larger number of people visiting the Southampton Art Center compared to the parish museum. But this is a huge basically undertaking and huge effort that led to this type of a program development. As we've developed our program, and now we can say that we are a proven institution, we are going to go out to look into getting grants and looking now towards improvement of the facility, primarily restoration of it, and bringing it back to its original glory in relationship to the grounds. Now, why are we focused at the grounds right now? Two reasons. One is that, first of all, in the absence of having the funds to develop the restoration project of the building, we started improving the grounds. The grounds are a very important component of this, and also in the context of COVID-19, have been used dramatically much more compared to previous times, and hence our focus on the grounds. And of course, the Marino Foundation joining us created an impetus and a catalyst to further define this space between the two of us. And by the way, I don't have to emphasize this to you that what you saw today, this presentation was developed both by my office and the Marino, Peter Marino's architecture office, which you know is one of the most and top architectural firms in the country, if not in the world.
CMAC,
Thank you.
CMAC, thank you for your presentation, very in-depth. I have just a quick question on the last picture you showed where the dark green,
Yes.
that is village-owned property that, or is the parking encroaching on property that is owned either by the Southampton Art Center or the Peter Marino property?
So as we all know, both these properties are owned by the village. The Southampton Art Center is owned by the village, and the parking is owned by the village. We are not proposing to change the property lines here. Actually, if you look at that, I don't know if you still have the site plan on your screen or not.
No, we don't have it up on the screen. That's it. No, the only reason that I'm asking is because I want to make sure. I mean, if it is all village owned and then it's a redistribution, which I think we're lining up the parking, which is probably a good thing. I don't know how many parking spaces we would lose by doing that. Well, no, but there's some in the middle there too, or something. So we would.
There's nothing in the middle right now. In the last development, again, talking about phases, in the last development, we cleaned up, it was a jagged edge at that point, and we eliminated the parking in the center. I introduced parking only on the two sides. Right now, we're just proposing the alignment of that. And that basically primarily was a request from Mr. Marino in light of all that he's contributed to the village to engage his foundation more into the grounds of the center. And this does not encompass any change of property lines. It's basically all village owned.
Right. It's all and the only I'm not getting into property lines and all of that. That had nothing to do with my question. My question is more from a legal standpoint. If we are doing that, if this needs to be opened up to a public hearing, or if it's something that the board can do standalone, or if as you said, it's your belief that the ARB doesn't need to be involved, in this, that it is something that the board can do, and that would be more of a question for the village attorney. And that's kind of where I was going for, not so much on disputing of property lines. I just want to make sure where the property is. If it's all village and we are just reconfiguring our village property, then maybe it doesn't need, or maybe it does. I just am uncertain, and that's why I wanted to ask the question.
So if there were to be an input, it again would not be the architectural board, it would be more of the planning commission and the planning board. I did basically present this thing to Chris Talbot, the village building department chief building inspector, and also to the fire marshal, and they don't have any opposition to this. They basically appreciated what they had seen, and they had no opposition to this. And we are not basically introducing any complications as far as traffic over there. The primary reason for this access way is basically for a fire truck, for instance, if in the case of emergency, be able to access the Merino Foundation, which that's not being eliminated. That's still there, ample, yes.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, I think it looks wonderful. I think the presentation looks great. I also want to make sure that the north-south entrance doesn't interfere with any existing, displays that are out there as well, because I know that there's one further to the north. But again, I just want to make sure that whatever we do, we are doing it in the correct manner. And so that's why I was asking the attorney if, and that is my question, whether we need it or not. So.
Well, Ken Gray here speaking, Trustee Polero. The issue should certainly be looked at. Off the top of my head, just having seen these plans, through a Zoom meeting, I can't answer that question, but I think it's a good idea to have a conversation with Chris Talbot and Jeff Blinkoff, the land use counsel for the village, to see if this needs to go forward to any other boards. So that's certainly something we will look at and let you know.
Thank you, Ken. And obviously we can defer to Alice Cooley, counsel for the Architecture Review Board. We appreciate that. The goal here, of course, is to have this presentation so we can see all of the incredible developments and work that that CMAC and the Merino Foundation have done. And I think that at least speaking for myself, but I hope I'm speaking on behalf of the board, that we think this is exactly what the village should be doing. We of course want to make sure that we're doing everything through the proper legal framework, and so we'll consult with our attorneys. But we do have a resolution later on the agenda to approve this, so we can have a continued discussion there. But we do appreciate CMAC's work. It's very good. I am completely in favor of moving forward. I guess if there's any other comments, we can go there, but if not, we can continue to move on.
I do one quick comment, Mayor. Maybe we can make an amendment to the resolution at Councilman's suggestion. If we can approve it on, we can put the resolution subject to input from Chris Talbot or counsel for the ARB or other land use council. So that's my suggestion. So we approve this, but we also, part of that is to have input from the councils regarding the application. Does that make sense, Ken?
Yes, the way I was reading that resolution was really, you were just approving the pavers that went from the, I guess, what you call the alleyway to the place. So I think that resolution probably can be modified, to just add some language subject to the necessary approvals of any other village boards. And this way you can just move it forward.
That's the goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee McLaughlin. Gary has a hand up, so we can let Gary. And Gary, for those who are listening, is the supervisor of our Public Works Department. So Gary, feel free to come on in.
And here he comes.
Hi. Can you see me?
Gary.
Okay. Hi, CMAC. CMAC, you know, we've been on this journey for a long time, right? You and I did the first part of the alleyway in the Village Hall years ago.
Yes.
I like your plan, but there is a little concern of the shrinking of that parking lot in the back. I do know we have a restaurant in there. We have garbage trucks and delivery trucks, and that area is used for a turnaround right now. So I wonder if I could grab you and maybe we could put some marks on the ground out there to see a visual, and then just make sure that they have enough room to function.
Sure.
That's all I have.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you, Gary. Okay, well, CMAC, again, thank you very much. It's our job as the board to make this work. When this comes to fruition, this is going to be a major improvement for our village, right in our village center, and it will definitely help us have a nice, vibrant summer of 2021. So thank you again. Thank you to Gary, and thank you to our board for their considerations. And we also are looking forward, we see the Architecture Review Board here. So Jeff, we see your comments there, and thanks for the heads up, and we're looking forward to your public hearing tonight and your presentation. So as we move forward, there's three. Ken, was that were you mentioning something, or if not, I'll keep on going.
I think,
No,
thank
no,
you.
sir, I'm good.
All right, thank you. So we have a second board presentation, which is the update from the Budget and Finance Committee. That board presentation is going to be moved to the March 23rd, 2021 work session. And next is a third presentation tonight, and that is a contract update. So this next presentation is an update regarding one of our administrators, our Chief of Police's contract. And members of our board have asked us, have asked our Labor Counsel, Vince Toomey, to provide an update, not relating to any ongoing negotiations, but simply to inform the public about the process and to explain why this is taking place to our residents. In addition, we've asked our treasurer, Charlene Cagle-Betts, to provide us with the relevant facts and the numbers, which is all public information, so that our residents have all the data that is readily available to them, as should be the case in any transparent government or transparent administration. So our Deputy Mayor, Gina Resta, will now present an overview, and then we will go to Vince and Charlene.
Before we start, I'd like to make a comment. I'm a little bit concerned
Trustee
about.
Parish, point of parliamentary procedure.
Well, I just want to make a comment now before we get into this, is that
Parish,
I'm a little bit
point of
concerned.
parliamentary
Mayor, I hear you, but I
procedure.
want to make this known.
You
I'm a little bit
cannot-
concerned about
have no
us
authority.
discussing contracts, and we've been through this before.
Trustee Parish,
And we've
you
always gone
cannot-
to exec.
you do not
So,
have the floor.
Listen,
Trustee
I'm
Parish,
just getting it out there on the record.
You
We know
can't-
that when we discuss contracts, we go to exec.
Trustee Parish, again, as the Chief Executive Officer and a member who presides over the meeting,
I
I have
understand who
to
you are.
politely inform you that you do not have the floor. But I appreciate your patience. I really do. You've been very patient throughout all of our meetings. But our Deputy Mayor, Trustee Aresta, has the floor. And at the end of the presentation, you have an opportunity to speak. And again, I appreciate your patience. And so thank you.
As you all know, we have been neck deep in the budget process for the last several weeks. And as part of that process, we realized that Chief Cummings' contract is set to expire on May 31st of this year. So we have been negotiating with him the last several weeks. And I wanted to let everyone know where we are with that, as it's because it's easily the largest salary in the village. So I'm going to read some, I have to read from this because it's all numbers. When the chief was hired, as chief, I should say, because he worked for the village before that, in 2011, Chief Cummings' base salary was just over $149,000, and his total compensation at that time was $190,000. Today, his base pay starts at $238,930.22. Then we add in his extra vacation, his night differential, his holiday pay, which brings his total compensation to $310,000 a year. If we add in, or when we add in his benefits and everything else that goes on top of that, the total annual cost to the village is almost $442,000. So to put this in perspective, I wanted to just do a little comparison. Dermot Shea, the police commissioner of New York City, which has the largest police force in America, has a base salary of $238,000. Our Governor Cuomo's salary was just recently raised to $250,000. And he is the highest governor's salary in the US. Charlene, can you walk us through some of these numbers, please, that I just stated, just to with some explanation? Charlene, I think you're on mute.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Vince had asked me for a contract. He asked me to break down the different types of salary types that are included in the chief's compensation, and there is a base amount. Base salary is actually considered his base salary plus his longevity, because that's the way that the police base salary is calculated. Night differential is $23,893. Vacation chart is an amount that we budget every year. There's a clause in the contract that allows for the buyout of excess vacation and sick time annually. So that's an amount that's been in the budget. And holiday pays ends up about $14,000. Total pay is $308,000, and cleaning, clothing allowance is about $4,000. So the other items that are below the line are basically just the amounts that are considered the benefit package.
Thank you, Charlene. Perhaps the most egregious thing is that the previous administration inserted an evergreen or perpetuity clause into his most recent contract, basically making him chief for as long as he wants to be. This is not only unheard of for a contract such as this, it's also against public policy. Is Vince on?
Hang on one second.
Okay.
Vincent Toomey?
Yes.
All right, let me bring him in. Where did he go? There he is. Okay. Just a couple of seconds, he'll be right on.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Hi, Vincent. I'm going to ask you to unmute and start your camera. There we go.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi, Vince. How are you?
I'm well, thank you, Gina.
Thank you for joining us this evening. I was hoping that you could enlighten us concerning the perpetuity clause, the evergreen clause in this particular contract that we have with Chief Cummings. Or just tell us, enlighten us, not particularly to him, but just enlighten us as to exactly what a perpetuity clause is.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. As an initial matter, I want to make the distinction that the employment contract is entirely separate from the chief's continued employment. The chief is a tenured public employee. He has protections under the civil service law and the village law. So this conversation has nothing to do with his employment status. It's really whether or not the employment contract can continue beyond the term of any given board. So this agreement was negotiated several years ago by a prior administration. There is a legal doctrine that provides that when it comes to governmental matters, one publicly elected board cannot bind a successor board. There are exceptions to that rule, but those exceptions are based upon cases where the state legislature or a charter or code specifically confers the authority for a contract to extend from term to term. The very easy example would be the collective bargaining agreements within the Village of Southampton or any other public employer. Those agreements, by virtue of a provision in the state's Taylor law, which controls collective bargaining, specifically provide that even though the boards change and the mayors change, those contracts remain in place. In the absence of that specific statutory authority for a contract to continue indefinitely, when a new board is elected, even if it's a single member of a new board, when it comes to contracts like this, while they're legally enforceable, a new board has the right to come in and say that they do not wish to be bound by the terms of that agreement. In a case like this, that would mean that the new board, this existing board, for example, would have the right to go to the chief and say, we want to negotiate a new contract, or they could say that we don't wish to have an employment contract. In that case, the chief's status continues as a tenured employee, and his terms and conditions of employment are established by certain other provisions of law or by a decision from the mayor and trustees on what those conditions should be. So the contract's not illegal. The legal expression, I have to go to the Latin, which we hate doing. It's not void ab initio. It's something that's a voidable agreement at the will of the current mayor and trustees, if there is a majority to do that. And that would result in either a new negotiation, or it would result in the board setting the terms and conditions of employment with certain restrictions. And those restrictions include, you could not reduce the base salary, you could not reduce the longevity, but there are some other benefits in the contract that could be changed either as part of a negotiation or unilaterally by the board if you're unable to reach a new agreement with the chief. Ideally, it's always best to work in good faith to negotiate a new contract, and there have been discussions to that effect. But should those discussions fail, the trustees would have a decision to make on whether or not they wish to be bound by the predecessor contract once you get to May 31. As of that date, the contract would otherwise expire, but for this evergreen clause. And the evergreen clause is of questionable policy from the point of view that, again, it would tie the hands of a successor board. So, for example, if this board decided that they wish to give Chief Cummings a 10-year agreement, you could enter into such an agreement. You'd have the legal authority to do that. But when there's a new trustee on the board, any change at all, even a single member of the board, that board could object to that and say, we no longer wish to be bound to that agreement. So it's fundamentally different from what you commonly know with your labor groups. Your labor unions have very different rights, and the state legislature intended that to be the case. So that's the overview of what those clauses mean.
Thank you, Vince. I know that Trustee Parrish wanted to speak, and again, just wanted to remind everyone, this is just a presentation of data and facts, not, of course, a negotiation, just a transparency exercise. So I see Trustee Plaro's hand up. Trustee Parrish, did you want to speak?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Just quickly, just because this is a new type of thing that we're doing, we're talking about contracts in person. And if we go back and we start looking at some of the things, yes, the numbers look really big, but he's been there for, I believe, 30 to 35 years. Vince, is that correct?
That is correct. He's been in the village's employ for over 30 years. Correct.
And compared to other chiefs on the East End and throughout the Suffolk County, is he the top, or is there others that are higher salaried?
Police chiefs are well compensated, and I do not believe that Chief Cummings is the highest paid chief. Within the realm of police chiefs, there's a range. He may be in the top end of the range, but I do not believe he's the top earner. And I believe some smaller municipalities may have more highly paid police chiefs.
Thank you. And I do know that when he became chief, he did take a reduction in salary to his predecessor. Is that correct?
I can't confirm that, Trustee Parrish, but I have heard that to be true.
Okay.
I've heard that to be true. That sometimes, remember, is a function of what you pointed out earlier. The longevity would be different. So sometimes there would be a change in the base salary. Sometimes an incoming chief would not have the same number of years of service, so their longevity pay would be lower. It may be a function of that. Charlene may know that. I can't confirm that specifically.
All right. Also, the chief has done a good job since he's taking over as chief. He hasn't put the village in harm's way. He's been, he's never missed a day of work. He has created a very good department to this point. And so I did find out about a little bit of this by an email through a reporter about there was discussion about the police contract. So I need the public to know that I was not in the loop in these negotiations. And I was fortunate enough to speak to Trustee McLaughlin, and we spoke a lot about the workings that were going on behind the scenes that I did not know about. And he at length discussed this. And we both came to the point where dignity and respect for someone who's given this village over 35 plus years needs to be put in play. And that any type of, quick decisions and, some type of, way to go about it where it's quickly really wasn't the way that this business does village. I just want the public to know that we prided ourselves on being a village that takes care of our employees. And when there is a time to go, dignity, respect, especially for the amount of time that he has put in as an officer of this village, is extremely important. And I'm just going to point out something to the public that since I've been in office, we've lost quite a few employees. We resigned, fired, and there's a lot of public mistrust. And that eventually is going to cost the village. And I'm concerned about that. And we really need to make sure that the public trust is there and that this board does the right thing for its residents and its employees together. Going forward, if we do renegotiate a future chief, absolutely, we will definitely work the right contract that's best for the taxpayers also. We did take this on. We can thank administrations in the past for a huge surplus we do have. I believe, Charlene, how much of a surplus do we have? 15 million?
You're muted, Charlene.
What do we have in reserves?
Unassigned surplus in the general fund is going to be close to $13 million by the end of this year.
So 13 million, and I like to thank the previous administrations for that too, because when these things come in where there has to be payouts from longevity, and we will have those in quite a few of our departments, not just the chief and the police, we're going to have that money there. So it's not going to be where we're going to have to find it from other ways. So I just want to make that point. And Vince, thank you for clarifying a lot of those things.
You're very welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Trustee Parrish. And Trustee McLaughlin was right to inform you because he is the only person who has had any discussions with the chief. So Trustee McLaughlin, thank you for keeping all of the board members informed of what you are doing. So that, Mark, that is why you may have heard from Trustee McLaughlin, because as the trustee liaison to the department, that is his responsibility. Any other person in this role would not have been doing so. So again, that is probably why you heard from Trustee McLaughlin. I don't want to belabor any point. We just wanted to update the public as to what is going on. Trustee Polaro, I know you had your hand up, so if you'd like to add anything, feel free.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Vince, thank you for coming on and talking. Some of the things that Charlene was pointing out to us, through vacation, all that, is that pretty much boilerplate language that any contract will have?
Thank you, Trustee Polaro. Actually, there are similarities among police chief executive contracts and some differences. They are most similar when it comes to things like base salary, and they differ somewhat when it comes to things like payouts for unused vacation time, payouts for unused sick leave. The Southampton Village contracts over the years have tended to be, even if we look at the police unions, tend to be on the high side when it comes to the payouts of leave time. For example, many municipal contracts, even pertaining to police, will pay out accumulated sick time on the basis for 1 day pay for every 2 days earned. In Southampton Village and some other municipalities, many of those days are paid on a 1-for-1 basis. And in Southampton Village, unlike some other contracts, there are also annual payouts for unused sick leave. So that may be an area where this particular contract varies from others on the higher side.
Right.
Okay. What's probably important to note, just as a historical reference, until about 10 years ago, there was a state law on the books that provided that the police chief executive, in this case, Chief Cummings, would essentially get the same benefits as his highest ranking subordinate in the collective bargaining unit. In this case, that would be the police captain. And there were exceptions to that rule, but with only essentially 3 exceptions, being overtime, holiday pay, and night differential, they got the same deal that their subordinates got. That law was repealed by the state legislature with the governor's approval, again, 10 or 11 years ago. So that's why you would see some similarity between the PBA contract and the chief's contract, and some similarity between all of the East End police contracts. Some similarities, some differences.
Okay, great. And then,
Uh,
so baseline, there are certain things that are in there. And then with regard to the other pieces that you were mentioning, I mean, you are our village labor attorney. Were those contracts drawn up under who? Were you?
My responsibilities for your particular village have varied over the years. There, and this just as a comparison, because my office represents most, if not all, of your neighbors. There are cases where my office will negotiate the contract directly. We'll be at the bargaining table from the very beginning to the end. In Southampton Village, that hasn't always been the case. Sometimes the negotiations are done internally, and then when assistance is needed by the mayor and village administrator, sometimes my office is brought in to assist in the process, often quite late in the process. And that's not entirely unusual. It's somewhat a matter of preference. And probably as a municipal labor lawyer, my preference would be that there be a lawyer there from the beginning, but it's not always that way, and it's not always necessary. So I don't believe that I had any hand in negotiating, for example, the police chief's contract. I'm familiar with it, but I believe that was done by prior administrations, and they may have well chosen to consult with the village attorney instead of labor council, and that would be well within their rights and discretion to do that. But I don't recall being involved in the negotiation of the police chief's contract. I've definitely been involved in negotiation of the PBA contract, but as I indicated earlier, my recollection is about half of the time I'm brought in at some point, but usually not at the very beginning. It's been about 15 plus years since I started the bargaining process on behalf of the village and brought it to conclusion. At other times, I was in and out depending on the will of the mayor and trustees.
Thank you, Vince. Is there any additional comments from the board? So thank you, everyone. So I'd like to conclude that Trustee Pash, you are correct. I think every member of this board cares deeply about our employees and protecting them. For example, you'll see later tonight that all of our employees who have not had vaccines, we're carving out 4 hours for them of paid time to go get their vaccines, and we made sure that we coordinated with Suffolk County in order for them to get them. And we've also enjoyed a particularly good relationship with the CSEA. That's the largest labor union we have. It's generally the labor union of some of our working class employees who we strive to protect and to go to lengths to make sure that the people who make our village look beautiful and who serve us, who make the least, get treated very well. In this particular case, we want to treat all of our employees well and recognize their service and dedication to the village, while at the same time balancing our fiscal responsibility to our residents and taxpayers. And it is critical, which is why we did this today, that our taxpayers know what we are working on and also know how much our highest paid employees are making. Again, to recap what our treasurer said, there's a total salary of $312,000 approximately, and a total annual cost to the village of $441,000. Again, that's accumulated by a 7% longevity, which is added to the base salary, plus 10% night differential, which is added on top of the 7% plus the base salary, as well as 28 paid vacation days, 21 sick days, that's 18 plus 3 if they're not used, plus the 13 or so paid holidays, plus the 7 or so bereavement days, plus the clothing and cleaning allowance, again, for the total salary of $312,000 or so, and the total annual cost to the village of $441,945.82. And that does not include the $503,000 of compensated absences. So Mark, you mentioned we do have a nice surplus. And so it's, of course, we want to make sure we use that surplus appropriately. And maybe in other cases, we might have to borrow or bond, depending on what our expenses are. But that doesn't include the $828 that are available, $503,000 available of compensated absences that will be due. Again, or it doesn't include the $737,000 of post-retirement benefits. So again, we just want to make this clear to our residents and taxpayers. I think when I ran for office and ran on a platform of transparency, I always like to quote people. And I remember quoting Alexander Hamilton, who said, the best governments are the most efficient ones. And that is something that we do and also pride ourselves in running an efficient and well-organized government that also does respect our employees and looks out for them. And again, we pride ourselves on our relationship with our employees, particularly our working class employees who deserve our utmost respect and cooperation. So with that said, I think we are now ready.
Mayor, can I just ask one more question?
Please.
Appreciate all the numbers and everything you just gave, but one question is, do you think he's earned it?
I think that's a question for a discussion within our board. But I will say, I might be the wrong person to ask because my compensation is $25,000, which comes out to about $7 an hour. And I look and it's my pleasure to serve this village, and I'll do anything and give anything to this village. So it's really not the time and place to discuss that. That's for us in executive session. But I'm happy to answer those questions, and we can meet anytime to discuss those. If there's no additional comments from the board, I'd like to move forward with the public hearing. You're on mute.
I know. I'm sorry. I just wanted to say something because Trustee Parrish, you mentioned before that you alluded to the fact that this was something that is sudden. But as you know, this started way back in January. So it's not something that is just happening the last couple of weeks. And the other thing is, it is a contract, and I think we're doing the right thing with the negotiations, because that's common practice to negotiate a contract at least 90 days before it's to expire. So I think that we are proceeding the right way, and it's not something that we just sprung on anybody. As you know, that this started way back in January, if not before.
So thank you, Trustee Arresta, for that. And you're right. There was one discussion that I recall that I was told that I believe the Joe and somebody else was in there with them. But this was really thrown on me last Sunday by Kitty Merrill in the email that we all got, that there was negotiations going on for the chief's departure because they want them out. And there was allegations of possibly dangling things over him, like he'd take away his benefits or his son would get, So these are what I was talking about earlier about, the public trust. And transparency is great. And I agree with you, Gina. Our job is to do the right thing for our taxpayers. I'm not questioning that at all. But there comes a point where elected officials should know what is going on. And the mayor, you are the police commissioner. Yes, Joe is the liaison, but you are the police commissioner. And in things like this, there should be a very good flow of communication. And that is all I just need to make.
Well, even Kitty alluded to the fact that they were rumors. So rather than take Kitty's word for it.
Email and see. I'm not sure if that was.
I think it could be a good opportunity to move on at this point.
I think
it was a good, constructive discussion. I think everyone had a good opportunity, and we have a very exciting public hearing in front of us. So would love to move on. We have our public hearing regarding Dee Dee at the Southampton Inn.
For the record, I just want to defer all my comments to executive session. So I do have things to say, but I want to wait till we speak with Mr. Toomey in private. So I will defer all my comments to executive session.
Thank you, Trustee McLaughlin. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just say, the only thing I will say is that the mayoral position and all the trustee position is a volunteer position. The chief of police is a paid. He is, you know, he has earned it over 35 years. And, you know, his due right is his due right. And that's what I will say. So I don't think comparing a second-year mayor to the chief of police who has worked for 35 years for this village, putting his life at risk, serving us, you know, during the daytime, during the nighttime, and all of that is good. And you know, I read most of it in today's press coming out. I have not been involved in this. There has been no discussions with me whatsoever about negotiations, about any of it. And as a duly elected official, I agree. I think communication is key, and transparency on this, there hasn't been any.
We're gonna move on again. The trustee liaison to the police department can fill you in. Again, he the other night was talking with Reverend Butler, and he was saying he does fill everyone in. Again, we all feel pretty similarly, and we do appreciate your thoughts, Trustee Polaro, and I wholeheartedly agree with your comments.
Good,
so thank you for sharing them.
especially as the police commissioner, I hope you would.
Thank you. The next public hearing is regarding 71 Hill Street, LLC. It's an application requesting a special permit for transit hotel and workforce housing pursuant to section 116-5 of the Village Code for property located at 71 and 91 Hill Street, Southampton, New York. Suffolk County Tax Map number 090406.001-00-007-00 and 090406.00-01.00-008.000. We're going to table this tonight. Ken, is it just appropriate to table it, or should we make a motion to close it or adjourn it?
I think you should just make a motion to table it.
Okay.
We're going to have, I've made arrangements with counsel for the applicant to have a meeting next week to further discuss.
Thank you, Ken. So I'd like to make a motion to table this public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
So we have an additional public hearing this evening, and I would like to make a motion to open the public hearing. It's from our ARB to amend the village code, which is a chapter, it says 116-34 to amend the village code chapter 116-37, which is building permits, certificates, or occupancy fees enforcement for demolition of existing structures. So I'd like to make a motion to open this public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
So first, I wanted to thank our entire architecture review board, as well as our chairperson, Jeff Broadleib, and our counsel to the architecture review board, Alice Cooley, for their hard work and dedication on this proposed local law and public hearing. This is one of the first times in a very long time that our ARB has done the work to actually prepare a public hearing for us that would be potentially part of our village code if passed. And so we wanted to give them the opportunity to open this up for us, to explain to us what this entails. And Jeff is looking to be let in. So Jeff, without further ado, the floor is yours.
Great. So I'm in. Thank you very much, Kat. Let's share my screen and we'll see if we can work this out, everybody. So hold on a second, Kat. Hold on. Let me do this. Okay, so share screen. And now I've got to figure out which one. Okay, here we go. Okay, thank you. Let's share that.
There you go. Yay.
All right, good. And I'm going to go to slideshow from the beginning. Hold on a second, folks. Okay. So, one, I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, trustees, Charlene and Ken, thanking you for your time, your consideration, and all the things you do. Also like to thank the attendees and those who are in the public, because there's been much said about transparency this evening, beginning with the public comment from Jesse Marie, as well as the most recent discussions. And that's what this is about. And it's the result of hard work and effort by the Architectural Review Board, or what's really it's the Board of Architectural Review and Historic Preservation, and the full name should not be lost. And we're fortunate in the composition of the board in having Sarah Latham, who is a trained historian, and then architect Peter DeWitt, and very earnest and interested co-members John Gregory and Mark McIntyre. And what you're going to see tonight, and it's relatively brief because it's a simple matter, but it's the result of a lot of effort and gumshoe effort by the board members who drove around town inventorying properties, looking at maps, looking at deeds, and just a lot of research. I'm not going to take you through all of that. It is available, but over the next few minutes, we'll summarize it. As I said, this, and as the title of the presentation states and underscores, this is about transparency and review, revising the procedure for the demolition applications. And as I said a couple of weeks ago at the work session, and for Jessie Marie, if she's still on, no property owner rights are being diminished, altered, or taken away in this. It's a matter of procedure to correct an unfortunate situation. And the situation is that houses of historic value and community character, our very own brand, are being demolished and just simply lost forever, and being done so without full community review and transparency. And this is, it goes from brand summer cottages like this house at the end of at Meadow Lane that was featured in House of the Hamptons, that was in a national register, but because of the date it was built, and you can't see it in that fuzzy image, 1930, it fell out of review by the community board that was created for that very purpose. But it also goes to the village homes, whether it be on Woolley Street or Pellicrow Street or Herrick. These four-square houses, these farmhouses, these traditional colonials, they represent the character of the village. And they represent a point in time. The village has changed over time. And when you demolish them, those are moments in history that are truly lost forever. We've even lost some significant artifacts. So this house, which some of you may know, it's called Halcyon. It's at the south end of Old Town Pond and borders on the beach. Well, that glass appendage was created by Philip Johnson, who's pictured here on this screen. I would assume, and most of you know him, communities that have his glass structures or unique architecture preserve them. They put them in museums. They do their darndest not to demolish them. Unfortunately, that was demolished. And so what's the problem? The problem is that we have outdated guidelines and an unrepresentative districting, such that structures built after November 1st, 1926, so nearly 100 years ago, and if they fall outside the historic district, which is most of the town, they can be demolished without public review and notice. And yet, as I mentioned to you a couple of weeks ago, if the owner of that particular property wanted to make a change in the windows or add a dormer, they'd have to come before public review. So it really doesn't make sense. And again, so the problem is the process. So let's look for a moment at the process in the historic district. A demo application is made. If it's in the historic district, then by code, it has to come before the Board of Architectural Review and Historic Preservation. And it's judged as to whether a demolition is appropriate or not based on meeting these 5 criteria. Essentially special character, historic personages, and Marcus, I kidded with you. You're a trustee, but not quite historic, but on the other hand, I'm sure your family thinks of you as such. Anyway, that's not to make light of it. It's just that, truly historic personages, distinguishing characters of architectural style, designer whose work was significantly influenced, like the Philip Johnson piece I just showed you, or because it has a unique and singular characteristic. Now, outside the historic district, there are, if it was built after 1926, November 1st, 1921, the current code says that property that's almost 100 years old does not have to go to the Architectural Review Board, or that the building inspector has to apply any criteria. They can unilaterally grant a demo permit. Okay, and as we saw in one of those earlier slides, there was a house that was built in 1930. So that house technically did not have to go before the review board. Now, if it's outside the historic district and it was built before November 1st, 1926, then the building inspector is required, it still goes to the building inspector, and it's not necessarily subject to Architectural Review Board review, but it is if it meets any of those same 5 criteria that are in the historic, for those houses in the historic district. That's the way it currently proceeds. The impact of that is that there are properties outside the historic district, and this represents the work that the board members did. There are about 570 properties that fall within this category, that of which 68 have been demolished, 102 have been altered, and about 400 or 70% are at potential risk. And many of them are those houses that are greater than 50 years old and have some historic value, whether they be 4 squares or whether they be farmhouses. And the impact of that, the consequences of that today are very real. In fact, here's a house, 4 Fountains, which was a 1928 vintage house. Again, not 1926. It was the estate was designed by a notable architect, Archibald Brown. It was the home of William Paley, the head of CBS. A small bit of trivia, Archibald Brown was a world-class architect who actually competed, if you will, in the 1936 Olympics. They actually had an art competition. So that's the house as it looked at one point. I want to share with you a video. So Kat, I'm going to get off of screen share, right?
Yep.
Okay, so stop share. And now I go back to screen share.
You have to first choose your video and then back to screen share.
Oh, I first have to choose the video? Okay,
Yeah,
hold on a
get your
second.
video together.
Well, I think I've got it here, Kat.
Okay.
Okay.
You
So
got it.
let me share this with you, hopefully. Oh, no, that's not the one I wanted, Kat. Hold on a second.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, folks. Let's see. Well, there, I think. No, hold on. You're right, Kat. I've got to share it again. Sorry, folks. Bear with me a second, folks. Let me escape this. Oh, no, you can't see that. Hold on a second. Cat, I'm having trouble. Okay, hold on. Let me get out of one thing here and let's see if we can get this video. Oh, darn. Hold
Yeah, I
on a
thought you
second.
put it somewhere, remember?
I did, and now it's lost. Hold on a second, Cat.
Oh,
Let me, hold on, folks. Oh, I know where it is, I think. Sorry, folks. Hold on, let's see. Now, it's gonna, bear with me again, just one more second, folks. Well, I don't want to delay this any further, folks. Kat, let me get back to screen share. So let's see here. Bummer. So let me get back to screen share, Kat.
okay.
Okay, hold on. There we go. All right, let me get back. Just trying to see where, if it's possible that it's here. No, I guess it didn't make it. But here's the point, folks. Kat, you got me?
Yes, you're on.
Okay, so this morning, and so when I say the consequences today are literally this morning. So during COVID, I had the good fortune of taking my morning coffee at the beach at the end of Halsey Neck each morning. As driving down there, there were, and I don't know if you can see it, I'm running the video on my screen, but there were bulldozers knocking down this very house and literally putting it in the dumpster.
It's playing, Jeff. Good.
Oh, it was playing?
Yes.
Ah, bummer. So did you folks see that? Is it still playing or?
No, you got rid of it.
Okay.
Oh, there it
So
is.
Okay, so this is a house, literally this morning, this house built in 1928 that represents a significant part of Southampton is literally being put into the dumpster as we speak. Thank you, Kat. Sorry, folks, for that. So what are the consequences of that? It's that moments of history are lost forever. What does that mean to the village? It's lost look, it's lost charm, it's lost brand, it's lost appeal, it's lost tourism, it's lost business, it's lost development, and it's lost revenue. And so the solution is simple. And we've been speaking about this for some time with the Planning Commission. And it's simply to move away from what is otherwise a fixed time date that is no longer relevant. I mean, I think it was in the code some 20 years ago. So it's out of date just by the mere fact that 20 years plus have passed. So we're proposing, along with the Planning Commission, to apply a rolling date of 50 years for public notice and review. Again, not changing any rights. It's simply a matter of changing that process so that anything older than 50 years comes before the Board of Architectural Review and Historic Preservation, and that the same criteria as currently exists are applied. And this will provide for transparency, community consideration, and again, all without losing any property rights. These are the actual red line changes I did send to the board, to Charlene, who I believe forwarded to the board, the actual red line portion. If you read through it, I'm happy to answer any questions. Ken, I'm not sure if you've had the chance to read it thoroughly, but Alice Cooley is available to discuss it with you and to make sure that what I said in terms of nobody losing any rights to Jesse Marie's earlier concern is in fact the case. So that's the situation, the problem. You've seen it happening before your very eyes. You've seen the consequences. Here's a simple solution, and I thank you.
Kat, is Alice Cooley on the call by any chance?
No, unfortunately, she was traveling today. Ken, I did reach out to her asking if she would be available, but unfortunately she's traveling, but did say that she's happy to confer with you should you need to do so.
I believe we had spoke on this topic, and that I knew this proposed legislation was coming forward. So we had spoken, and then that's fine. And if that's the board's recommendation, and she had drafted it, then I have reviewed it, and it looks appropriate and fine to me.
Thank you very much, Jeff. That was an excellent presentation, and we just wanted to thank every member.
A few technical challenges, Jesse. Come on.
It was a good PowerPoint. Even used some video in there, so I'm impressed.
I give good PowerPoint.
And I know we have some other attendees here.
Right, and I'm happy to ask any questions. My fellow board members are there if questions come up from either the trustees to them or me. So it's your call. I know it's a long evening, so we're not looking to prolong it in any way, but I'm also happy to respond to any public questions.
All right, thank you very much. Again, just wanted to thank you. We have some members here. I see some members of the Architectural Review Board here. So again, wanted to thank them. I see Mark McIntyre, John Gregory, Sarah Latham Kearns, and the rest of the group. But we'd love to open this up to comments from board members. I think it makes sense to keep this public hearing open so we can have more comments at the next meeting. And then that could be a good time to close and vote. But for now, do we have any comments from board members?
I just have one recommendation that we post the ARB's presentation to the village website so the public can view it.
Sure.
Trustee Ply, I know you're itching to comment.
No, not itching. Just I think what we heard earlier this evening from Jess is that, you know, it wasn't properly sent out a notice. So I think that rather than just have a notice, which is in Village Hall, which when I walked by today and looked at it, it doesn't take into account any of the changes that are looking to be made. I think we should make it very clear. I think we should put it in the paper. I think we should put it on the website. I think we should let the public know, because I guarantee that a lot of people are going to have a say and feelings about the change that this will make. I mean, you know, Jeff, you mentioned that there are X number of buildings today in the historic that fall into this. I wonder how many buildings in the village are 50 plus years old and will automatically now be under a historic designation and need to go in front of a ARB review, potential to be demolished if and when properties change hands. Whether it's historic, whether it's in the historic district or not, we are somewhat classifying buildings that will be 50 years old in that, because they will need to go in front of the Historic Review Board or the Architectural Review Board. And so again, I'm deferring all my comments. I just want to make sure that we put it out to the public, so because I really want to hear what the public has to say, and make sure that the public is exactly aware. As we heard this evening, they weren't. And so let's get it out to them so that, you know, we can hear what needs to be done.
Right. So yes, again, more transparency is better than less. Full disclosure is better than not. And that's the whole purpose of this. But just for clarity's sake, no houses that are outside the historic district are being designated, whether it be literally or with air quotes, figuratively, as historic. It's simply applying the same standards that the building inspector is required to do to be done in public with proper notice, the way any structural change is noticed, and applying, again, the same criteria. So nobody, no property owner, no house is losing their inherent rights. And I'm happy to make that clear. And I think one of the ways to make that clear is by public discussion of this matter. And also, as Joe suggested, to have the presentation we just made available for everybody to see. Because then I think when they look at the red line and they'll see it in the process, they'll understand that their rights are not being diminished or altered.
Thank
Great.
you. Are there any other
Yeah.
comments from the board?
Ken's not moving. It's his picture, sorry.
Thank you, Jeff, for the presentation.
Okay, my pleasure.
Mark McIntyre has his hand up.
Just one quick thing before Mark speaks. I just wanted to thank Jeff. I know you and the entire board have dedicated a lot of time to this. And I, probably one of the few trustees who have spent a lot of time viewing meetings. And when I was on the planning commission, I spent a lot of time going to the ARB meetings and the planning board meetings and ZBA meetings. So I just wanted to also, if I can hear from your fellow board members as to how they feel and just to have their comments as well. So
yep,
thank you.
they're welcome to chime in. Like I said, this is a team, and it's a village that takes a village.
Thank you. A few quick comments here. And Peter, by the way, it's good to see you too. I didn't mention your name, but thanks for joining. Number one, just want to get this right. So if this wasn't noticed properly, we'll make sure that's the case. We'll check with our clerk, but I would say that I think it's important for this board to make sure there's enough money in our budget for a clerk. We have one person doing 3 duties, and we've spoken about that for a while, and it's the clerk's responsibility to make sure that this gets noticed out correctly. And so I urge this board to make sure we have funding for a clerk in our budget.
I just wanted to interrupt. There was a notice in the newspaper. It was noticed in the newspaper and in Village Hall. The notice basically indicated that there was going to be a change to the code. It listed the name and the citation of the code and the title of the code. But if you can see from the red line version, the changes were quite great. So there was no way that we could notice the entire change in amendment to the contract, to the code, I'm sorry, in the newspaper. And we will make sure that the red line version is up on the website for people to, and refer to the website for the changes there in the future.
Perfect, Charlene, thank you. I was not suggesting it wasn't noticed properly. I was just saying it wasn't a full disclosure within the notice, which is, I think, also what Jess had been asking earlier. And I just want to make sure, again, that all of the information is there for the public to understand, so that they can then comment on it, especially in the public hearing portion of this.
Ken Gray here. Can I chime in for a second?
Yes, and then don't forget Mark McIntyre's waiting patiently. Thank
I
you.
don't want to cut anybody off. So
From my hand.
Do you want to speak, Mark?
No, go ahead.
All right, go ahead, Ken.
okay, so while we were on the meeting and based upon the comments that one of the residents, Jess Rubio, I think her name was, commented, I had an opportunity to review the notice that was published in the local paper. I believe it to be sufficient for the notice of this hearing, but based upon the concerns of the residents and the trustees and the fact that we're not closing the public hearing tonight, I will work with Alice Cooley, Charlene, and Jeff to prepare a notice for another notice for publication that maybe has a little bit more detail. As Charlene correctly points out, it's impractical to and cost prohibitive to publish in the paper all of the changes in any particular local law that needs to be reviewed. So we will take care of that. We will try to update so that the notice has a little bit more information in it, so to speak, and we'll move forward and carry this over to the next public session. Thank you, Mayor.
Great, thanks.
Thank you, Ken. So that's great. We don't want to take any more time and attention away from the legislation that our ARB put a lot of work into. So I know Mark is ready to go. So Mark, we'll turn this over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and trustees. I think one of the privileges we enjoy in living in Southampton is that this is seminal work of architecture that our residents have the ability to provide in the community. And right now, the arbitrary date of 1926, we have beautiful buildings representing great work from famous people that happened between 1926 forward, and the decision of what happens to those just happens without public review. And I think having public review of those buildings is important, and I think having transparency to the entire community is important, and that's why this legislation is out there. We have been losing some of our older buildings at a rapid pace. If you look at from 1991 to 1998, we lost 29 structures that were either altered or lost by 2009. But from 2009 until the work we did driving the streets of Southampton, 68 more historic structures outside the district have been demolished. And I think we just need to have a larger discussion about what's important to the flavor of the village before these decisions are made. So that's why we're before you.
Thank you, Mark. The one comment that I wanted to add as it relates to this public hearing, and you'll probably be hearing from me again at our next public hearing about this, is that we have done a significant amount of work over the last 18 months or so to help with the rebuilding and the reconstruction of the Pierce Concert Home, which was demolished and destroyed in approximately 2015. There was a debate with the Architecture Review Board over a certificate of appropriateness, Chapter 65, my favorite chapter, Chapter 65-4, exactly for the certificate of appropriateness. And if this piece of legislation was in order in 2015, that never would have happened. We could have avoided it, particularly with the right people on the board. And the Pierce Concert property, which in my opinion is one of the most important properties in Southampton, but also an extremely important property in American history and in Black history that is now destroyed. And myself and Dr. Georgette Greer-Key from the Eastville Historical Society, as well as Brenda Simmons, who used to work for the village, and our new grant writer, Nicole Christian, we've been working very hard with Preserve Long Island, our town board, and Assemblyperson Fred Thiel, to raise money in order to rebuild this home. We're actually on our way to potentially raising over $1 million for this. And so we're inching close to that. And again, that was one of our, in my opinion, one of our most important properties that we lost due to a backroom deal. And again, we don't want that to happen. Again, there's countless properties that, Jeff, you had outlined in your property. So if there's any issues with this legislation, we could, of course, modify or change. It's an open public hearing. But at a minimum, the gist and the concept of this legislation is important. And the hope is that the ARB will also be extremely fair as the permits are put in front of them, but to have one individual at his or her discretion to determine whether a historic property or what could be historic property could be demolition or demoed or not in a village that is slowly but steadily losing some of our historic properties is critical. But again, as a board of trustees, we're open to hearing the comments from our public. We work for the public, and so we really want to hear what our public has to say. So we'll keep it open as long as we need to.
I'll just add one more thing. The building department, Chris Talbot, is supportive of this as well. He feels it's an untenable, perhaps unfair burden for one person, as you say, Jesse, to carry that responsibility. So it has their support as well.
Thank you. And we give Chris a lot of credit for doing a great job. And he's been working extremely hard running one of our best and most profitable departments. And so I would agree with you that it sounds like someone might actually be relieved to take some of this decision-making off of his plate and add it more to a group of five. So thank you again for that, Jeff.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you, board members.
Thank you.
Trustees. Thank you.
It does not look like there is additional public comment here on this public hearing. So
okay, well, we'll be available for the next session. What's that? 2 weeks hence. So happy to join in then.
All right, I think we could adjourn it to our next meeting. I know it's a work session, but because we want to get more input here, we can keep it open for the work session. So I don't know what that date is, Charlene. It's maybe March 23rd.
It's the 23rd.
Okay. So I'd like to make a motion.
Well, Mr. Mayor, if I may, Charlene, does that give us enough time to republish a revised notice? I don't know the deadlines for the local paper.
Yes, yes, we would have to have it in, is it tomorrow, Kath, or Monday?
Monday morning.
Tomorrow, Kathy said it would have to be to the press, yeah, tomorrow.
Tomorrow, because then it'll be posted next Thursday.
Then it'll be in the paper next week.
Right, otherwise we would miss it, because the following meeting.
Does that
is
work,
Tuesday.
Ken?
It's,
If it's too tight, we can slip it to April 8th.
April 8th is the next public meeting.
I'm gonna recommend April 8th, just so, you know, that we make sure that everybody gets the notice they need.
Understood.
Okay.
Yeah,
And just,
that makes sense.
and just ask the building department not to issue any demolition permits between now and then. Okay, I think that's the safer course of action.
Adjourn till April 8th.
All right, so I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the public hearing to our meeting on April 8th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Next, thank you again to the ARB.
Okay.
everyone. Good night.
Thank you, folks. Good night, all.
All right, so the next portion is the suggested resolutions. Charlene, we'll turn this over to you for our first resolution.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Resolution number 1, resolved that the claims for the warrant dated March 11th, 2021 totaling $752,322.04, warrant A15 general fund, and $42,983 warrant H8 capital fund be audited and approved. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Resolution number 2, resolved that the reading of the minutes for the public session and special session of be disposed with. Do we have a date on that, Kathy? Oh, February 23rd. Be dispensed with, and that those minutes be accepted as filed by the village administrator, and that the actions taken at that meeting are hereby ratified and approved. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, resolution number 3, resolved that the Board of Trustees authorizes the SAC Arboretum Improvements Proposal generated by Simex Semi Architect PC to create new exerscaping and pavers along the SAC and Village Hall rear entrance at no cost to the village. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
If I may, I think we had modified that resolution.
Yes.
Subject to the further approval of any other village board as required.
Subject to the approval. Any other village board.
And I also think that Sammy said that he was going to ask the village to do the pavers that went through the parking lot to connect the two walkways. We may have to go back on that. I believe he said that. That would be
Yes,
the only
that's
cost to the village.
And I think that's part of the resolution.
Well, it says no cost to the village.
Right, somebody's donating, my understanding is that the SAC is donating that material and work, and it's going to include the pavers along the SAC and Village Hall rear entrance.
I'm not quite, but he did say that he was going to ask the village to do that walkway between, that's actually on the driveway that's behind Village Hall.
That is
That
correct.
would be at the,
You are correct, Trustee Aresta.
okay.
So should we change the resolution to say for that portion, for a portion of the project to be funded by the village?
Well, that should be modified. I mean, because it will
Yes.
cost the village something if we do it as discussed.
Ken, is it sufficient to strike the language where it says at no cost to the village?
Well, I mean, again, all of the property is quote unquote owned by the village. The way I had read it, and I thought there was a presentation, was that they would be taking care of the portion that's even on the other village property. I just need a clarification on that.
He's still in if you want him to talk.
Could we,
If you could.
Well,
Yes.
no, I mean, here's a thing. If we leave it as discussed now, and we know that what we want to do on the street and stuff is village property, and we will have that to cost, because what he's talking about here along the SAC and Village Hall rear entrance at no cost, I mean, that doesn't take into account across the street, and across the street is separate from this resolution, and we're just doing that as work within the village. Would that be covered under this? Because if that work is not included in this resolution, and we are solely talking about the work presented to SAC and Peter Marino Foundation, and so then the work with regards to the street is under the village's purview.
That I understand, but I think we have Mr. Sammy here on the call, so we can just ask for a clarification.
Yes, the section that connects the two sidewalks, or the sidewalk on the Village Hall connecting to the grounds of the SAC is burdened by the village. That's on the street, on the roadway, basically. That's the portion that the village will undertake. Anything else beyond that on the grounds of the center would be jointly between the Marino Foundation and the center.
Okay, so then again, if in what it is stated in this resolution, that is not talking about the street.
And I would like to also clarify that this is not a new proposal to the trustees. This was approved by the trustees about 4 years ago, when we paved the walk from Main Street to the rear parking lot at the village's expense. We never continued that project across the street. We stopped short of that because we had not started the walkway on the other side. So basically, this is reapplying for continuation of work that was previously presented to the trustees and approved.
So you know, just looking at it now, it appears that the village can approve the improvements, on the Arboretum property, and approve that, again, subject to approval of any other village boards that may need requirement. But what we're going to do is we're going to need a costing out issue for the village portion of what the village will have to pay for, to make sure that we comply with all you know, bidding requirements and whatnot. So we need to get a proposal and make sure that it falls within the requirements that we're allowed to authorize.
And just to clarify also, this work was done in-house by the village highway department. It did not go out to bid, public bidding.
Is it proposed that the work that needs to be done on behalf of the village will be done in-house again?
Correct.
Oh, that's terrific. I was unaware of that. I apologize. So
the village has the capacity to undertake this kind of work. They're doing actually some work of this nature in other areas of the village. This kind of a brick paving is consistent with in-house village work.
Okay, great. So yes, so this resolution is fine to authorize the work on the SAC property, the Southampton Arts Council property, which is village-owned property. And then we can in-house deal with the extension that goes to the Village Hall property.
Right.
Right, but also we have to make sure that Mr. Gillespie has that chance to see what's going on back there. That's very important.
Right, that's how you want to mark it out.
Right, so you might want to make you might want to make this also then subject to approval by that department head.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm going to add the language, subject to approval of any other future town village board, and subject to the approval of the DPW director.
I think that would be appropriate.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying everything.
Okay, so on the amended resolution, do we have a motion?
Make the motion on the amended resolution.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Resolution number 4, that the Board of Trustees graciously accepts the donation of $15,000 from the, valued at $15,000 from the Village Christmas Decorations Committee for the removal of the existing dead Agawam Christmas tree and the purchase and planting of a new Agawam Park Christmas tree. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Discussion, I just have to recuse myself from this vote because I am one of the members of the Christmas Decorations Committee.
And I will have to do the same.
Good thing everyone else is here. All right. All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Accused. Resolution number 5, whereas in addition to the drug and alcohol testing policy set forth in the collective bargaining agreement between the village and the Civil Service Employees Union, Village of Southampton Unit, Suffolk County Local 852, the village is required to adopt a drug and alcohol policy, a copy of which is attached hereto for village employees who perform safety-sensitive work in the workplace or on the job in compliance with the New York State Department of Transportation regulations. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the village board hereby adopts the attached drug and alcohol policy for the village employees who perform safety-sensitive work. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
Just on the resolution, I just wanted to clarify, we have, there's a requirement that any employees operating village equipment and using their commercial driver's license need to be randomly drug and alcohol tested, and we would be actually formally adopting the policy that was circulated and attached to the agenda, and also hiring a firm, which will be a subsequent resolution that would be conducting those random tests for us. And I did have discussions with the union. They were on board with it. So I've had discussions with both the president and vice president of the union on this. So any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, resolution number 6, resolved that the mayor is authorized to execute a contract with Comply Corp employee drug testing to conduct DOT mandatory random drug testing for the village employees with commercial driver's licenses according to the attached fee schedule. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, resolution number 7, whereas on September 7th, 2020, Governor Cuomo signed legislation requiring that all public employers, including the Village of Southampton, to create and publish operation plans in the event the governor declares a public health emergency involving a communicable disease. The new law, section 27C of the New York State Labor Law, requires the village to set forth protocols for protecting its workforce in the event of such emergency. The village is required to adopt an operation plan in compliance with section 27C of New York Labor Law, a copy of which is attached hereto. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the village board hereby adopts the attached operation plan in compliance with section 27C of the New York Labor Law in the event that Governor Cuomo declares a public health emergency involving a communicable disease. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? And Ken, I have to submit this by April 1st, correct?
Well, yes, the answer is yes. The board needed to adopt this plan before April 1st, and we need to send it up to Albany.
Okay, so we'll be doing that tomorrow. Thank you.
Terrific.
Okay, resolution number 8. Whereas the Board of Trustees encourages employees to receive the vaccination to prevent the spread of COVID-19, which Governor Cuomo has expanded the eligibility parameter to include municipal employees effective March 17th, 2021. Whereas the Board of Trustees would grant up to would grant up to 4 hours of paid leave to employees who are unable to schedule vaccination appointments outside of his or her work schedule. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Board of Trustees will grant up to 4 hours of paid leave for an employee to receive the vaccination and authorize the mayor to sign the stipulation of settlement with the CSCA president to effectuate this benefit. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Discussion?
Yes. Trustee Polaro.
Yes. A resolution is supposed to be very black and white. And the first part of this resolution is not very black and white. And I would like to know what liability may occur with this board who is encouraging employees to receive the vaccination, if any.
So the question was, what liability does?
Yeah, I mean, we're asking, you know, we're telling a group, our employees, we are encouraging them. We are saying, go and do this.
Right. No, we're not requiring them.
No,
to
we're
do
not
this.
requiring it, but we are encouraging it. And I would hate to see, God forbid, something happen to one of our employees, and it could, you know, could this come back and bite us? And does the resolution, if we remove that first paragraph, does the resolution still read exactly the same? Where we, as the mayor said earlier, we are helping our employees by giving them 4 hours off. Personally, I would not like to see the word encourage in the resolution.
It's a screening as a sample.
Ken, is the word?
I don't think we have the right to do anything medically with our employees. I don't think we should encourage, require, or any of it. We hope, I mean, we would hope that our village employees will go out and get the vaccine, but for us to sit there and say we are encouraging it, if something were to happen, God forbid, one of our employees goes out, and there have been people that have passed because of the vaccine, is there a liability on this village because we have encouraged it? And if there is, then I want to make sure that we are protecting this village, because it would be really bad to have this word in there and have it come back and bite us. So I think
the resolution was prepared, also the stipulation and the resolution were prepared by our Labor Council's office, Vince Toomey's office, prepared
I
it.
understand, and you know, I'm not sure what part, when he was brought in on the thing, like he said earlier this evening, there are times that he's brought in late and all of this. So I just wondering, I mean, if the resolution reads exactly the same without that first paragraph, I think it just protects it protects the village board. Again, I would hope that everyone would go and get the vaccine, but I don't want to be encouraging it.
Ken, do we want to say the Board of Trustees hopes employees receive the vaccine?
What about support?
Well, I think a simple, from what I'm hearing from this, is basically, can we just say the Board of Trustees would grant up to 4 hours of paid leave to employees who are unable to schedule a vaccine appointment?
All right.
Is that,
You can take out the whole first whereas.
I mean, that seems to be, you
Can
know,
I jump in? Can I jump in?
Sure.
If I may? The short answer to Trustee Polaro's question is I don't believe it opens up the village to liability, and I generally don't like to give legal opinions in open public meetings. But may I suggest we alter that paragraph to satisfy you, to say that whereas the Board of Trustees recognizes that employees are seeking to receive the vaccination, takes out the word encourage.
Employees who are seeking to receive,
I think that's good.
vaccination, that, you know, again, I personally, I mean, I wouldn't, while I agree that I want to give the employees 4 hours off, if there's any sort of encouragement, hopes, supports, all of that, I will not vote in favor of it, because I do think that it could. And I understand, Ken, you don't want to give anything on, you know, quickly on a public meeting, but I just want to make sure that, you know, we are not held responsible. God forbid something happens.
All right, let's we can tighten it up, as they say, Ken, less is more. And we'll just grant the 4 hours, and we can get rid of the whereas. And if our employees have an issue with the vaccine, they can sue Dr. Fauci instead.
So on the resolution, I'm going to change it to amend it to say the Board of Trustees. Oh, you just want me to take the entire first paragraph out? Okay, I'm going to strike the entire first paragraph, and then the resolution will read, whereas the Board of Trustees would grant up to 4 hours, will grant up to 4 hours of paid leave to employees who are unable to schedule vaccinations outside of his or her work schedule. Now, therefore, be resolved, the Board of Trustees will grant up to 4 hours of paid leave for an employee to receive the vaccination and authorize the mayor to sign the stipulation of settlement with the CSDA president to effectuate the benefit. On the amended resolution, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion on the amended.
And a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Resolution 9, whereas the village has previously approved and received the following grants for the Old Town Pond total grants for Old Town Pond project. Total cost of the project is $213,120. Town share, town of Southampton CPF grant in the amount of $94,898. Suffolk County Water Quality Grant in the amount of $94,897, and the village match of $23,375. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the village board approves the submission of the New York State DEC permit application for the project and authorizes the expenditure of funds for the project from the trustees' special projects account prior to reimbursement from the granting agencies. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Good job to everybody that worked on this. I'm happy to see that this body of water is getting attention. So everybody involved in this is, it's good.
Thank you, Mark.
All right, thank you. The next portion and final portion of our meeting tonight is the comments from board members. So Trustee Resta, you are first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually had to make a list because Gary and I have been so busy getting ready for the spring. Our Department of Public Works is going to be very, very busy. First, we did a walkthrough on Tuesday of Moses Park. There's so much going on there, working on the pathway and plans to edge it now and finish it off. We've ordered some picnic tables. Every time I go there to the park, there's always 1 or 2 people eating lunch in their cars. I'm always there at lunchtime, and they're always eating in their cars. And there's more to come with the possible pavilion there and other things. But the guys are working hard on the cleanup and on the working on the entrances as well. The next park we're going to tackle is the park in Wynwood Way. I had that on the plan for next week to for Gary and I to walk through that and make some plans to make that a beautiful park as well. We went through tree replacement that is needed at around Agawam Park. We met with the landscape architect for his recommendations as well. Tim Rump was very generous with his time, giving a suggestion to replace the trees that are dying on the east side of the sidewalk. So along with that, I was also there to look at the Christmas tree, and I understand why it has to be taken down. It's on its way out, and we're making plans to another tree on the other side. It's a sister tree, so to speak, on the other side will be decorated for Christmas next year until the new tree that's going to be placed there matures a bit. There might be for a couple of years that we'll have to decorate the tree on the other side. We went over, we started talking about repaving because we have to, there's some repaving that's going to be done in the spring, but the bulk of the paving is going to be done in the fall, as it usually is. There may be some intermittent paving on some of the side streets, so not to interrupt with some traffic, but the bulk of it will be done in the fall, and we're working on that plan as well. the installations of the cupola on Cooper's Beach, at Cooper's Beach at the pavilion. That should be done hopefully by the end of the month, and that also is going to contain the cell service in the cupola. And I think all the trustees have seen the plans for that. That's going to look very nice. They're also working on sprucing up the bathrooms at Cooper's Beach. I had a couple of requests about that, so they'll be sprucing up that one. And basically, the bathrooms at Dune Beach, they're going to have a big renovation because it needs it, and there's no way we could salvage what's there. I don't think they're over 25 years old now, and they've really been weather beaten. We're working on some drainage. We went over some areas that the drainage needs improvement, and gave Gary the okay to start working on the ones that are most needed. And I guess that's it. Did I miss anything? We were also up at Flying Point Park, and you're going to hear more about this at the next meeting. But we were also there today because there's a group that wants to make a donation to redo the sod in the areas of the soccer field. So more to come about that at Downs Park. And I guess that's it. So have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you, Trustee Aresta. Next is Trustee McLaughlin.
Thank you. I want to take this time to thank the ARB and the SAC members to present tonight. As the building department liaison, I do want to say that, you know, all the boards do a great job with very low compensation from the village. So, and I would I look forward to for the discussion involving these plans, and I wish the SAC the best of luck in their proposed renovations to the grounds of a beautiful historic property. So. Thank you, and that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you, Trustee McLaughlin. Next is Trustee Parrish.
Thank you. Yes, thank you to CMAC and all the members of the ARB who attended and spoke and in depth about what they are presenting to the public. From the Justice Court, it is moving along. We are still not fully open. I'm hoping in the next few months we will. But on a good note, I do believe we'll be getting some more income because I see a lot of traffic. Police officers pulling over people in the village lately with a lot of traffic infractions. So we're going to be coming and getting some revenue coming in, and looking forward to when that court can be open and functioning correctly. And on another note, today is the 1 year of when the coronavirus was declared a national pandemic. And everybody out there, I just want to just say that we all have thought about everybody throughout this whole country and the world about what has happened over the last year, and that we are definitely getting closer to the end than we were at this point last year. So have a good night, everybody.
Thank you very much, Trustee Parrish. Trustee Polaro.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, as Mark just said, I again, the 1 year anniversary from when it was declared here was definitely something prior. You know, then in the US, but also then want to thank our EMS, especially that's my department, want to thank them for all their hard and diligent work over the last year. And that goes then to all departments, fire, police as well, having to deal with it. And it has been something that has just been unprecedented over the years. But as we said, you know, there is glimmer and some hopes coming forward. It was stated about 40 minutes ago when the president spoke that he is hoping that by May 1st, all citizens will be able to receive a vaccination. And so if that is truly the case, then maybe there is a glimmer of hope at the end.
Thank you, Trustee Polaro. A lot of thank yous as well. First, I actually wanted to thank Elaine Bretschneider, who seems to be the only attendee left here, and Kathy Sweeney, the hardest working deputy clerk on the Long Island, probably. But thank you to both. Lane, if hopefully you're listening and not cooking or something, and leaving your Zoom on. And also wanted to extend a very large thank you to all of the members of our stakeholders group via the Executive Order 203, the co-chairs, Trustee McLaughlin, Trustee Parrish, as well as the stakeholders who volunteered their time to help out. It's had its ups and downs, but over the last several days, some really good progress was made. And I know everyone was working very hard, and there were some emotional moments. And I think that the group came a long way. So I just wanted to extend a thank you to the stakeholders, and also specifically to the law enforcement personnel who participated on that, because it was a good group. And again, there's always room to improve, and if need be, it could be continued in some form or another. But again, just a thank you to everybody who worked together. And a quick thank you. Don't know if anyone's listening to, they'll be listening, but just wanted to thank Father Alex and Father Constantine at the Greek Church, who were helping with some of the vaccine distribution. And again, also Gary Gillespie as well for his work. I know he just left the Zoom meeting, but for his work with us and the Clean Water Committee, Rob Coburn and Tom, on the bioswales that will be installed by Old Town that we got these grants for, which is great. So we're very excited about both the town CPF and the Suffolk County Water Quality Grant that just came back and was executed for us. And again, also wanted to thank CMAQ. So I think it seems like we'll be moving into executive session tonight, which is the first time in a while, which I think is a good thing. But just wanted to encourage everybody that we will collaborate, work together. We're a team here.
Do we have an agenda has an agenda for executive session been?
I don't have an agenda for executive session, but Trustee McLaughlin had asked before the meeting if we could meet in an exec session, so.
We don't have to do it if, I mean, it's up to the
No,
board.
just again, it just would have been nice to know. I didn't realize we were going into executive session. So, and I mean, I've just, after 2 hours and 43 minutes of, as long as I had known, it would have been nice, because I've had my son waiting to eat dinner. He's just back from school for spring break, but
Well, Trustee McLaughlin, is there anything that we can put off until the following meeting?
Wanted to discuss the presentation given by Vinsumi, but if we
no, I mean, that's gonna, that's important, but I just, again, it would be nice to have known and to have an agenda submitted, sent around for it.
It's okay that, there weren't any plans. I know Trustee McLaughlin, but I actually agree. I'd love to adjourn the meeting. And I too am very hungry and would love to get some dinner. It's a long meeting tonight. That was a good one. So
I think it's probably important that we have it. But yeah.
Can
Okay.
we
just, do you want to poll the board real quick? Do we want to do it or not? There's no agenda. It's just a quick update from one of the trustees, but give me 6 of one, half dozen of another.
I didn't know we were going to.
Yeah, I agree. I did not have
let's call it.
any idea about this, so.
I would prefer Vince to be with us in executive session. So, so if you guys want to just do it next time, let's do it next time.
Good point.
He's left. Yep.
I understand, but I would prefer him to have us speak with him privately.
All right.
Okay,
Sounds
so
good.
do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make the motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
You're mute.
Good night.